Hi everybody, my name is Louise and welcome back to this week's knitting podcast. Before I start talking about all my knitting that I got done last week, I want to just apologize and say that I'm really sorry that this week's video is a few days late. I know there are some of you that watch the videos as soon as they're posted up on YouTube, and this one is late. I've had a migraine. I think this is day 4 of a migraine. And I just could not record anything, but I've got some new medication, which is making a world of difference. So here I am, ready to chat with you. So I've got some finishes to show you. First off are my Christmas socks. These socks have been in a lot of videos because I've been trying to knit these for, well, like a month. They're a month late. I wanted this the end of January now, and these, I had high hopes that I would have been wearing these on Christmas Eve and for Christmas Day. That did not happen. But that's okay. I'm not going to dwell on the fact that they are a month late and they totally missed the Christmas season. I am just going to look ahead and think that I am well prepared for Christmas 2021. And I've got a pair of Christmas socks ready to go in my Christmas drawer and be ready for the upcoming holiday season. The colorway is Hollyberry, and the yarn came from Timber Yarns. Heather Dye's beautiful self-striping yarn, and the yarn comes as twin socks, so there's 250-gram balls, and they are set so you can start each sock in the same spot, and you can get perfectly matching stripes. Mine, however, did not end up perfectly. So this is a good this is one of those times when it's do as I say, not as I do. So if you're paying attention to your knitting, your socks will end up absolutely perfect and be totally matchy-matchy. Mine were close. I was knitting sock number 2 and I did not have sock number 1 with me. And I misgauged a little bit of how quickly I should start my heel flap, and it kind of got my stripes a little bit off. But that's okay. I'm going to wear them and love them just as much. That was not a yarn fault. That was totally user error on my end. Anyways. Next project is my cowl. I showed this to you in last week's video, and it was almost finished except for the last couple of rounds of my solid brown and then the cast off edge. So I finished that off. I've woven all of the ends except for these 2 tails, my cast on and cast off, because we're going to use those in our knitting lesson today. I get lots of questions about how I prevent this gap when you are starting and ending your project. And my answer is I don't ever really, does that, you can kind of see what I'm talking about there, right? And I don't ever try to prevent it because it's easy enough just to fix it up at the end. You have your tails here that you have to weave in anyways. So I'm going to show you a quick little way of how I just darn it together, and you can't tell. So I will show you that. I will pop in a little video right here. Welcome to today's knit lesson. What we're going to do is we're going to use our tail and we're going to weave it in and close up this gap that we have up here. So we're going to use a darning needle, and we'll need a pair of scissors eventually. So just thread your tail onto a darning needle. And if you take a look at the cast off edge, it almost looks like a series of chain stitches along the top. And where we've started and stopped, we've got a gap. So what we want to do is we just want to replicate a chain type of stitch. So what we're going to do, we're going to go from where our yarn is attached over here. I'm going to pick up both legs of this first stitch, pull my yarn through. So we're going to bring across our working yarn to fill in that gap. I'm going to pull it snug, and then we're going to bring it around, and I'm going to pick up 2 legs of our stitch back here See how already that's looking better? And I always like to go over it twice. So we're just basically bringing our working yarn and making a circle. Pull that in. And if you want, you can come around again. And then just pull your yarn to the inside. And you're ready to weave it in. And look at that. It just fills in that space nicely. And we're going to work our tail down. And because we've got the same colored stitches here, I would work down here. And you want to work at a fair distance away from the edge, because when you snip off your tail, you don't want it anywhere close to the top, so that when you're wearing it, you don't want a tail poking up. And that is just as easy as that. So let's just spin it around, and we can do it again on the bottom side. Take your darning needle and you thread it onto your tail that you're wanting to weave in. So if we take a look here, we've got kind of this stair step in the gap. So we're going to come over here to where there's 2 legs of our existing cast off row. And we're just going to snug this up. And you can just kind of play around so it looks right, so there's not a gap, it's not puckering. And bring it around. And look at that, just snug it in. And you can repeat that as many times as you need to think that you've got it looking how you want it to look. And then just run your tail down through a number of stitches, snip it off, and there you are. Okay, so now that you've seen the lesson, you'll see how easy it is, right? Yeah, it is. It's very easy. And I'll show you on this cowl. The white and brown one, that was last week's cowl, or 2 weeks ago's cowl. This is this week's cowl. I am in love with this one. Look at the colors on this. So let's talk a bit about the yarn and the stitch pattern. The stitch pattern is the tuck stitch. I have been in love with this stitch for about the last 3 weeks. I've been working with this stitch. It is so fun. It is a great way to liven up your striped knitting, because that's all this really is. I know when you look at this, you think, how can this start out as stripes? But it does. You start out with 2, right in between here, I've got 2 rows of stockinette in my background color, which is the dark gray. And then I knit 4 rows of yellow. Then on the first row of gray, I work across and I drop 4 rows of yellow. I pick up the first gray stitch that's down here in the 2 rows of gray. I scoop it up and pull it up and work that stitch. And that, by pulling up that gray stitch, that breaks up that line of striped knitting. It's just as simple as that. It's really fun. I'm kind of addicted to doing it. So the yarn, this was Caron cakes, those great big Caron anniversary cakes. And if you haven't seen those before, I have one sitting here. I bought 3. I knit 1 into the yellow cardigan, 1 into the gray pullover, and I have this peach colored one still sitting here. This was now a one-time run of these yarns, I believe back in the summer. It was, Caron was celebrating the anniversary of their Caron Cakes balls, because these are so fun, right? You guys know I have a lot of the different Caron cakes. There's skinny, there's chunky, there's tweeds, there's all kinds. The latte, I mean, there's all kinds. So look at these massive balls. This is 1,000 grams. So when I purchased this with the intention of making sweaters, I was afraid that maybe I wouldn't have enough yarn. I don't know why. I guess we always feel that way, right? There's always a chance of running out. Well, I ended up having lots of yarn left over. So that's what I've been working up this month of January, is working on using up these leftover bits from these two sweaters. So the colorways, if you're at all interested, I can never remember. So I've got the ball bands here. Spiced Soiree is this really pretty yellow and brown. Cookie, oh, I still can't remember. Even though I've already looked at the ball bands, I still can't remember. What is it called? Cookie Parade is the shades of gray. So I have just taken all the part balls that I've had, and I had to cut and piece together, because in order to keep the striping the same width on the body and on the sleeves, it took a little bit of cutting. So I would make sure I did the correct amount of rows, then I would cut off the rest of the white, then I would go down to the next color, knit my correct amount of rows, cut off the rest of this dark brown, and then go into the light. So that meant that I had quite a few part balls left. And even after knitting 4 cowls, I still have this many part balls left. So I'm going to work on this. I'm going to probably weigh this just to see how much is actually left, but I'm hoping I have enough left for 2 cowls. And I have a plan. I think I'm going to go back to the dip stitch and work 1 more cowl, and then do something out of color work, because I'm thinking the last one I'm going to have a lot of just like really tiny little balls. So just do a round or 2 in some kind of stranded ferrule type pattern, with the intent of being able to use up every last little bit of this yarn. And then I will have 2 of those huge Karen Cake anniversary balls totally knit and usable. Let me tell you a little bit about this. So I knit this on a 7mm needle. I cast on 60 stitches. The yarn is a number 6 super bulky. And my goal dimensions was about 24 inches in circumference, give or take a little bit. I mean, it's a cowl, you've got a little bit of playroom there. And height-wise, anywhere between 7.5, 8, 8.5 inches. This white one, I actually intended to make it a little bit deeper. I meant to go 8 inches on this one, but I ran out of the white with the little brown fleck. There was like no playing yarn chicken. I couldn't even, I knew I wasn't, I had a little, maybe I had a little, do I have a little ball? Yes. This is what I had left over, which I knew was not going to be enough to do 4 full rounds to make a full stripe. So I just ended it here. I'll just do a quick measure. So from cast on to cast off edge, I am, right about 7.5 inches on here, which I thought was going to be a little bit short, but let's try it on. And it actually, I think is fine. So I want you guys to help me here to decide what you think is, is the ideal height of a cowl. See, to me, this looks pretty good, doesn't it? There's not a lot to like scrunch and bunch it together, but I don't think we really need to. That is going to give you nice coverage here on your shoulders, I think, right? If you're pulling your coat around, it comes up over your chin. I think it might be fine. Try to unattach my hair from the cowl. Okay, so 7.5 inches. This one here, I just dropped my tape measure again. Let's take a quick measure on it. So again, from cast on edge to cast off edge, this one is, it's about 1 inch longer. It's about 8.5 inches. So my cast on and cast off edges roll just a smidge on here, and I kind of like how that looks because there's no ribbing, there's no garter. It's just cast on and 2 rows of stockinette. But then once you get into this, the tuck stitch, that seems to stop the roll. So you just get a nice little rolled edge, top and bottom, which I really quite like how that looks. So let's see how this one is. An extra inch in height. Let's see what we think. Oh, I really love these colors. Maybe it's because they are my colors is part of it. If you are a pink, purple, blue person, you may be like, oh yeah, Louise, this isn't quite you know, my colors, but this is my colors. I really like this. Okay, so I've got an extra inch in height here. What do you think? Does it add a little too much bulk? Is it good because you can kind of squish it down a little bit? You get a little more coverage down around your shoulders? What do you think? Or does it really make a difference? I think either way, depending maybe if you know how much yarn you've got, if you want something a little quicker knit and you don't want to do this extra round on here. I think either way, we're probably pretty good, aren't we? But if you have one preference or another, leave me a message down in the comment. What do you think? Do you like the shorter or like the longer version? It's only an inch, right? But with cowl knitting, you've got so much play, right? You can make it exactly how you want it. If you wanted it a little longer, boy, that was nice and warm. You can make it a little longer. You can make it the exact size that you want, right? You can make the circumference a little bit bigger. You can make it a little smaller. But look at this. I actually really like how that looks on the inside. Does that not look fun? So there was quite a few ends to weave in on the inside here, but it wasn't a big deal. Just a quick, sit down, make myself do them, and they were done. So that is that. Okay, so the yarn. I want to talk about the yarn. So I talked about 7mm needle, a number 6 bulky weight yarn, 60 stitches. Now, if you want to adjust the size of these, it's a 4-stitch repeat. So if you wanted it a little smaller, you could go 56 stitches. If you wanted it a little bit, and this is a round because it's knit in the round. So if you wanted it if you wanted it a little snugger, if you were like, I don't know, skiing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, something that you want something super warm, you could cast on 4 stitches less. That'll give you roughly an inch smaller in diameter. So you could 60 stitches down to 56. If you wanted a little bit bigger, a little more open, you could cast on 64 or 68 or 72. You could just keep going and make it whatever you want. Let's talk just a couple minutes about the yarn choice, because not all number 6 super bulky yarns are the same weight. And I think we talked about this a little bit when I was sorting the yarn. So if we take a look at the ball bands, this is what I want you to take a look at. Ball bands, let's look at the yarn first. This is the Caron Cakes that I've been knitting my cowls with. And you can look at how thick or thin that is. I've got Lion Brand Wool Ease here as well. It is also a number 6. If we look on the ball band, there, no glare, you can see it says number 6 as well, right? But look at the thickness of the actual yarn. Not sure. Well, here, we'll go with, even just looking. The gray, the Lion Brand Thick and Quick, is a lot thicker than this one. So if I'm telling you to use a super bulky yarn for the pattern and to get the dimensions that I'm happy with this, you need the lighter weight one. So take a look at what the ball bands say for gauge. The thicker one is telling you they're only getting 9 stitches in 4 inches. This ball band, they're getting 11 stitches. So 11, the stitches are smaller because they're able to squeeze more stitches within that 4-inch measurement. So there you go, which leads to the question, why is it not consistent? But it's not. So anyway, just a word of warning, if you're running out to buy yarn, double check the gauge and see if it's the thicker or the thinner super bulky. Anyways, I'm using the thinner. So just if anybody wanted to just go with my measurements and knit that, I wanted to make sure that you had the right yarn, because if you use the thick and quick, you're probably going to want to go up a needle size and then maybe cut back on that maybe instead of using 60 stitches, you'll want to go 56. You may have to play with it a little bit, but that's how we can modify our knitting, right? We can use any type of yarn, go by our gauge. My whole gauge to garment process could be perfect example of this, right? If you've got thick and quick, there's no reason why you can't use it. You'll just have to check your measurements and then alter your stitch count and you'll be good to go. So what else can I show you? I make cowl knitting. I've been on a big cowl knitting kick, but it's been really fun. It's been fun to be able to have a small project that I can start and I can finish. And these honestly is an easy weekend knit. I actually think and I mean, if you have a whole day that you're like maybe binge watching something on Netflix or, you've got a series of something that you're watching, you can do this in a day, because I did. I spent last weekend and just knit, but easily a weekend project. Definitely an easy knit for all week. If you just have an hour or two every night after work, definitely can start and finish it within a week. So there was a lot of satisfaction in being able to do that for sure. So my other project that I pulled out of out of my New Start Monday pile of new starts, this was my sweater. The sweater that I had thought I was going to knit in 2 weeks and obviously did not even come close to happening. This is my top-down cardigan. The designer of this is Marie Green. So this is the book that I purchased. Remember this book? I talked a lot about, this was one of those books that I kept getting over and over and over from the library. I would renew it. I would return it. And then like 2 days later, I would go take it back out again. And I finally got to the point where I thought, okay, this is ridiculous. Louise, just go purchase the book. Support the designer. I love it so much. And it really made me stop and think about what the library staff, if they were ever monitoring my account and seeing how many times I'd taken this, I thought they must be saying, for heaven's sakes, girl, just go buy the book, right? And let other people have a chance of actually getting it out of the library. So there it is. That's the cardigan that I'm making. And I picked this just because it was a cardigan. I liked the length of it. And that's really the only thing that I paid attention to. It was a cardigan. I liked the length. It was top down, which was what I wanted. And that's what Marie Green, if you follow her, she's not active on Instagram at all, but she does have an active Facebook group under All of Knits. So if you want to check her out there, she is a great wealth of sweater knitting knowledge. If sweater knitting is one of your goals for this year, she would be a great person to follow along with as well. And you can also go grab her book. So anyways, I just made a quick photocopy of the pattern of this sweater. And as I was looking at it, in my photocopy, that's what I was looking at. And you can't really see anything in that as far as detail in the sweater, right? So when I got to the pattern, all of a sudden it said, work slip stitches for this band. And I'm like, a band? Where is there a band? Well, if you look, so I came back to the book and I looked here and look right there. There is a slip stitch band all the way around the front, the back, and the other front. I'm like, I didn't even know that. I just worked it and it was really a fun detail. So let's take a peek at the sweater. So here I am, my top down cardigan. You can see, if I show you the back, you can see the raglan shaping here. The increases worked out and there's sleeves. And I've just gotten a little bit past the, this is really awkward to hold, the sleeve divide. And there you can see I've worked that slip stitch detail all the way around. I think it's going to be cute. Add a nice little touch to the sweater. Something that I wasn't even planning on. The really exciting thing about this sweater is I am ready to start the pleat. There is a pleat detail in the back of the sweater, and she starts it off by actually casting off some stitches. So I've knit pleats before in other projects, but I think that this is done differently than how I've done my pleats in the past. So I'm really excited to try a new technique and see how it goes. So next week when I come back, and I'll be able to show you how this pleat is knitting up. So I'm really excited about that. And, you know, just the whole fact of actually getting to work on a sweater again. This year, I really want to focus on sweater knitting, sweaters and socks. I don't know. Maybe I still want to knit everything. I don't know. I think I should probably not try to pin myself down too much on what I want to knit and just go week by week or month by month. Maybe month by month. Maybe have a little organization in there anyways. But I really enjoyed last year's sweater knitting. Last year I got the most sweaters knit in a year I think that I ever have. And I would really like to at least match that. So I'm going to, you know, even though this was started last year, I'm going to get it finished this year, maybe in time, you know, for early spring to wear it, I hope. So I think I'm off to a good start. The yarn, of course, is my Patton's Classic Wool. The colorway is Mercury, that I have probably at least 30 balls of. So there's no fear of having to worry about running out of yarn for this project. And that, I think, is the wrap up of my knitting this week. Really a lot of cowls. So my goal, my intention, what do I want to put, where do I want to pick for this week? I'd really, really want to get another cowl, maybe even 2 done, because I would really like to get this basket emptied. My ball band's out of here. So I'd really like to work this into another cowl and try to switch up the colors a little bit so it's not identical to this. Maybe put in, I've got a little bit of light gray in there. There is a little bit of white. I don't know. We will see. I think my background color, whether I do the dip stitch or if I do, I just had a thought. What if I try to do a somewhat matching hat? Okay, I'm gonna think about this a little bit. Maybe I might actually try to do a hat. I think I like that challenge. All right. So I'm gonna take that back a little bit. Maybe I'll do, instead of a cowl, maybe I will do one hat and another cowl. We'll see what I get. Come back next week. See what I've got done. See if I have any of that yarn left over. Maybe I'll have used it all up. I guess I'll just have to start knitting and we will see. In between today's video and when next week's video comes out at the beginning of the week, you can always follow Wildflower Wool over on Instagram and you can see the progress and you can get a little sneak peek before next week's video. So I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week and weekend knitting, and I will see you next week. You can leave me some comments down below what you're working on. Let me know about the cowl too. Like, what size do you think? Do you think it matters? Am I overthinking it? Maybe, probably. Anyways, everybody, have a great knitting week, and I will see you back here in the next video. Bye.